Welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I'm your host, Steve Eisenhower, and I'm joined with my good friend, Glen Anleitner. That's how I pronounce your last name, yes?
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
That's good? Okay.
Anleitner.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Long time, I guess you could say, fan of the channel, always active in the comments, giving support. I really appreciate that. But once again, it's one of the Leaving Idolatry series, one of many who has left the church behind and embraced the God of Israel. So, yeah, how you doing? How you doing, Glenn?
Oh, I'm great.
Happy to have you on, man. Happy to finally see your face. I'm excited. It's gonna be good. But before Glenn and I get started, everyone hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, give Glenn and I a big thumbs up, and feel free to find in the description any literary resource you may need, also including Rabbi Federo's Learn Hebrew in 1 Hour class. So, all right, Glenn, just to start off, a little bit of background. Christian domination, how long you're in the church, just let everyone know.
Well, I was a Christian for over 40 years, but really a devout Christian probably the last 2-3 years of those 40, devout Christian. But I've been to many different denominations, mostly Baptist. Seventh-day Adventist was the last tour I had of denominations, because they kept the Sabbath. At that time, I thought that everybody needed to keep the Sabbath. And Seventh-day Adventists teach to keeping the Sabbath. Until I started reading and understood that the Sabbath was really for Jews, not for Gentiles. So then I stopped keeping the Sabbath like that. I mean, I would still just read and watch videos about God on the Sabbath, but not keep it like the Jew.
Sure. Right.
Then I got into reading and studying and looking up history, a whole lot of stuff on history to really get into what is the truth. To me, if God is important to you, then you need to know the truth. You should be looking for the truth, each individual person. People, for the most part, just like me, they're born in a family that's a certain religion or a certain way, and that's how they're raised, and that's how they're taught, and that's what they think the truth is, because that's what they were told their whole life, but they never checked on anything. And not that their parents lied to them or their grandparents. That's just how it falls from many generations before it. It's just like if people were born in another country, they could be raised Buddhists. Then they'd have faith in Buddha, and they would think anything that isn't the same as Buddha is wrong, and you wouldn't bother tell them nothing.
Right. That's a good point. Really good
point. Yeah. So that's why it's important for each and every person to look things up. What anybody claims. What anybody claims. You watch a video on somebody, check out what their claims are. Is it true? Did they leave anything out? Maybe they're telling you one part, like a lot of people want to cherry pick verses that are taken out of context, and it's not saying what they're making it say.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing even with history. Some people leave some things out to make it say what they want it to say instead of what it's supposed to say.
Mm-hmm. So at what point, would you say you really started having your doubts about the Christian faith? Was there something you saw in the New Testament or something you saw in the Bible and it just didn't jive? And you started to think like, I got to dig a bit deeper in this. I had some questions that you weren't getting answers for. What was the next step for you?
Well, as I was going through the Christian Old Testament, I would see things in there that didn't comport with the teaching of Christianity. It wasn't the same. Christianity says you cannot, everybody sins, nobody can overcome sin, nobody can fix themselves, pretty much. That's why you need Jesus. But in Genesis, God told Cain, God himself tells Cain, you can rule over sin. Mm-hmm. That was one of the striking things to me. And then as I keep going through, there's a big difference in the teaching of the Jewish scriptures and the New Testament. And nowhere in the Jewish scriptures does God say he's changing anything. Right. Matter of fact, in Malachi, I think it is, God says, I am the Lord thy God, I change not.
Yeah. Yep, good point. Very good point. And if the Torah says at one point, God is not a man, I am not a man, and then Malachi says God doesn't change, and then you get to the New Testament, and boom, all of a sudden, God becomes a man. There's kind of some red flags being tossed up there,
right? Right. Yeah. Right. Then when you go deeper and you learn more, and you see that Christianity wants to teach that nobody's righteous, but God himself calls people in the Hebrew scriptures righteous. Yeah. Abraham, Noah, Enoch, and not that they never sinned, because we know Noah, even though God calls Noah perfect in his generations, doesn't mean he didn't sin.
Sure.
Because you don't have to be perfect, according to God. You don't, as long as you know how to right your ways when you make mistakes.
Yeah. Proverbs: the righteous man falls 7 times and rises.
Right.
What's funny is even the Gospels call people righteous prior to the death of Jesus.
Oh yeah, in Luke chapter 1.
Yeah.
Right. Elizabeth and
Zechariah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. They even do that, and Christians are overlooked that.
Yep.
And really go by Paul, because Paul's really the one that says it. I think does he say it in Romans? I think nobody's righteous, no, not one.
I do believe you're correct. See, the Romans or Galatians, but you're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably right. But it's a total mistranslation or a total misconstruction of the Psalms, where the preface is that it's talking about those who don't believe in God.
Right. Right. Well,
he just strategically omits that part.
Right. Right. He's good at that.
Mm-hmm. He is.
And that's why it's on our own selves to study ourselves to find the truth, because of people like Paul that would change things or purposely leave things out at their own convenience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you were having these questions, did you go to a minister or a preacher, a pastor, anyone you kind of looked up to in a leadership role with your questions?
Yeah. I would go soul winning on Saturdays with a teacher in the Sunday school class who was the secretary of the pastor. And I went to a big church, a 15,000 member church.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, it was a big Baptist church. And I would go soul winning with him, and I would ask him, like when we went knocking on doors, and he would ask the person, if you died tomorrow, how do you know you'll be going to heaven or hell? No, he would start out like that when knocking on the doors, and
subtle.
so he said, well, no, if you accept Jesus in your heart and you do this prayer, then you'll go to heaven, because it's a gift. You don't have to do anything for it. That's exactly how he would say it. Wow. It's given to you. It's a gift. You don't have to do anything for it. And then he would. Some people slam the door in your face, but then there's some people that just hear you out. Hopefully you'll go up, probably. But, so they take the prayer and he tell them, well, after you took the prayer, I can't see in your heart. So it's between you and he would say Jesus. If you accepted Jesus in your heart, then you're good. You go to heaven. Then he would invite them to church or whatever. But then at church, he would say, how many people he saved doing this, going to soul winning? How many people you saved? And I said, wait a minute. I would tell him, I say, well, how can you say you saved anybody if you already told that person you can't see in his heart if he really accepted Jesus or not?
Right. Good point.
So you don't even know. He might not even think about Jesus no more after you left.
Yeah. He might just want to get you off his porch. Yeah.
Right, yeah. But then you go and say this.
It's funny because when I was a
of
Christian, I did something similar. I was raised Pentecostal, so they were all about, the proactive proselytization, And I did this Soul Winners boot camp thing, and it was, door to door, and then throwing this big block party and having baptisms at the block party and all this stuff. And it's funny because you do this door to door and you're handing out flyers saying, "Yo, come to the block party, experience Jesus. There's gonna be food, games, music, all that." And it's so funny because you had all these people show up, and they just showed up for a hot dog and left. You know what I mean? So like, so it's just one of those things. And then they would say, "Oh, what a great success!" Because 150 people showed up. Okay, you baptized 2, and they were already Christians anyway, and everyone else just showed up for a hot dog. So what really, it's like fudging the data, Very similar to what you're saying here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what they'll do, and and people just go for that. We're allowed to enjoy life. God wants us to.
Sure.
But it's not about only enjoying life. No, that's the way I look at it.
Right.
It's not about just only enjoying life. And no, that's what a lot of holidays are about, is just enjoy. And that's another big difference that I found with the Christian holidays and the Jewish holidays. The Jewish holidays involve a lot of work. There's preparation with the holiday. Usually the first day of the holiday is a Sabbath where they can't cook and stuff, so they got to do that the day before. And it's all about God and nothing else.
Right.
It's really about God.
Yeah, and normally it has to do with the salvation of their people. Right? A lot of their holidays are about these salvific events that occurred through the Jews' history.
Right, and they're explicitly told in Leviticus chapter 23.
Yeah.
The Christian holidays are not explicitly told anywhere in their book.
No.
And that's why you have denominations that celebrate holidays at different times,
right,
or not at all.
Right.
Yeah. Like the Jehovah's Witness don't celebrate any of them.
Yeah. Right. A good friend of mine is from Greece, and he's Greek Orthodox, and their Easter, I think, is actually, it's either a week or 2 weeks later than like the normative Easter is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why even with different Jewish denominations, they still celebrate all their holidays at the same time.
Yeah.
That's not where they differ.
Right.
Because it is explicitly told in their book. Celebrate this then. No, not Hanukkah, because that was after. But Yom Kippur, all them are right there telling you when to celebrate it. And that's why they don't have no disagreement on that, the different Jewish sects.
Right.
They all do that at the same time.
Sure.
And to me, that's where you can find out where something's false, is when everybody isn't doing the same thing.
Right.
That's that to me, that's a red flag also. That was false. That something's false. That's how it was when I first realized that not all Christians celebrated Christmas, and that's what it was supposed to be about Jesus, not Santa Claus.
Right. Right.
Well, even with Christmas, not everybody that celebrates Christmas is a Christian. A lot of people do it because it's fun.
It's much more, in my opinion, when I think of Christmas, I think of much more of a secular holiday than anything.
Yeah.
Think
Christians
about sure, but think about like every Christmas movie on like ABC Family or something stupid like that. They're all just about a man and a woman falling in love at Christmas time. It never has anything to do with like religious traditions. It's just these two people in front of a Christmas tree kissing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that's so it's definitely become a much more secular, commercialized holiday, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't even look at it that way. Yeah, you're right. It is more secular than it is. Yeah, because most people seem to not even do it because of any religious significance.
Right, they just do it.
There's a lot of people that call. Yeah, not even a lot of people that call themselves Christians do it as a religious significance thing.
Sure. And those people that you normally wouldn't consider devout, this is like the other side of the coin. Those people that you normally wouldn't consider devout, like Christmas and Easter are the 2 days of the year that they're going to post something about Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, thank God he was born, or thank God he died. You know what I mean? Like those are the 2 days of the year that the less than devout Christians are devout. You know what I mean? And
right.
And that's another peculiar thing is this religion literally took over the world. So it's like just become ingrained in society that when those two holidays approach, it's like everything on the TV or social media is just about that. It's like almost impossible to get away from it.
Right. Right.
So when you would go to these fellow Christians with your questions or your concerns, were they receptive? But did they get offended that you were even questioning this? Like, did you receive any like abusive backlash or harsh words, anything when you started making this decision?
Well, not after like one or two questions. That mostly it was the teacher of my Sunday school class. When I go somewhere, I might ask him questions, and he'll show me a verse or two on the first one or two questions. But then after it got to a few questions, then he would say, "Well, some things you just got to have faith."
Yeah.
And you just got to trust your faith. And I said, well, everything isn't faith, because every religion has faith,
right,
in what they believe in. So it's got to be more than faith.
Mm-hmm.
I discuss things with Christians in some groups, and that's what they always want to bring up is the faith of Noah and Abraham, but they forget about the obedience that Noah and Abraham had.
Right.
Well, the faith was counted as righteousness. He had the faith after his obedience. Because he believed what God said, not that he believed there was a God that existed.
Right.
There's a difference.
Right. And, faith, this is one thing learning Hebrew that really, kind of just blew my mind away was the word faith is actually kind of a misnomer. The word emunah, which is often translated as faith, really means faithfulness. Like reliance. Not so much just believing that entity exists, but counting on it. That if I take this step, that step is guided by God. That's, for example, like you sit on a chair. You have faith. You can count on that chair holding you.
Right.
It's not like an invisible chair that you're that you're hoping it holds you. You have faith in a chair holding you because it's tested. Same thing with God. You can test His faithfulness, and just like Abraham and Noah, He tested their faithfulness, and they showed out. Right? Noah built an ark when he had never seen rain, and Abraham picked up and left the land of his birth and went to a place that God was going to show him. Right? So it's much more. It's faith in action, I guess, would be a better understanding. Faithfulness, faithfulness, reliance,
Right.
testable faith.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I bring up to Christians is Paul himself defines faith as hope in Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1.
Yep.
He says faith is those are for things that are unseen and hoped for.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell when you have your faith, you're really hoping.
Yeah, you're just hoping it works out.
Yeah, you're just hoping.
Yes, that is actually a pretty major distinction between faith and Judaism. The idea of Abraham's faith versus this Pauline faith. This really unsubstantiated hope.
Right. And yeah, and that's the thing that people really need to look at. That's why, when I comment on stuff, I always end it with read, study, learn. Not just read something,
Right.
study it, so you can learn it.
Yep.
And try to emphasize that to people.
So when you did finally make this transition, when you finally made it out, what did you do for? Like, what were the avenues you took? Who was your go-to to learn from? Kind of like explain the you're out of Christianity now. What's a day in the life of Glen like? What do you? How does that work now that you're no longer a Christian?
Well, outside of when I work, and I do work a lot, I read.
Okay.
I read. I've got a lot of books I got from Outscroll. Studying what the sages say, interpret certain things. I read, and like I said, I watch different channels on YouTube from multiple rabbis. Because synagogue by me is 45 miles. So, and it's in the city, with a lot of traffic and stuff. It's hard to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a couple of WhatsApp groups with rabbis at synagogues. So if I did go, which I haven't yet, I do plan on going there. But otherwise, that's all I do is I read. I think the more you read in God's word, talk not just commentaries, but Scripture itself. That's how you stay close to God.
Yeah.
By staying in His word, not just pretending, hey, I love and do whatever you want to do. I get that with some people. When I post videos, they'll say, well, video's too long. Can you take snippets of it? Well, why is it so? Well, why? An hour you don't have an hour to learn about God? So I tell them, well, why don't you have an hour? Well, what do you got to do? God created us. Yeah. We can't give Him an hour?
Right.
I have people that'll say that. Well, I don't have time. 3-minute video is good. You can only give God 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's sad.
You say,
And I think that's a product of modernity. We have the internet, and just like right now, you're across. I'm not sure where you're located, but I assume you're pretty far away from me. And in an instant, we can connect and see face to face. So our modern society is so used to instant gratification that setting aside an hour for something like that seems so foreign to us now. And it's really sad that society's come to that.
Right, exactly. And that's how they get lost, because they can't give no time to find out. It's like people will spend years in school to get degrees, to learn everything they can about law or everything they can about medicine, but never opened a holy book.
Right.
Whatever holy book they think it is. We don't even have to go with just the Jewish scriptures. Even if you claim to be a Christian or claim to be a Muslim, you still won't open your Quran or your New Testament or whatever you want to call your holy book, but you're going to read all kinds of books to become a doctor and make money. All kinds of books to become a lawyer, all kinds of books written by different people to give you insight from different views on law, but you won't read the holy book, for one, written by different authors, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Isaiah, just like in law.
Yeah.
Or in the commentaries by different people to check it out. But you would spend all that time, all them years in school to get a bachelor's degree, master's degree, whichever it is, and never open a holy book.
Yeah. And that in itself might be a product of the Christian mindset. Think about Judaism. It's so much about intellect and Torah study. Truly knowing who God is by what He revealed to the Jews at Sinai. Right? That's like the most integral, one of the most integral parts of Judaism is the Torah. Because that's everything. On the other hand, for a Christian, why even study it? Because Jesus did all the work. You don't have to do anything. You're saved, right? You accept Jesus, and now you're good to go. Why should I even have to learn anything more than that? If I accepted Jesus into my heart, He did all the work for me already. So you can see.
That's right. That is what they teach. Yes.
Yeah. So it's very. Once again, you're seeing that major disconnect from the intellectual, testable knowledge of Judaism and a true ingraining of everything in their Torah into their daily life, to this Christian mindset of, well, I'm totally depraved anyway. Jesus already did everything for me. Let's send up a few prayers and good to go.
Good to go.
It's a very stark contrast. It's when people say that Judaism is just Christianity without Jesus. That's so far from the truth.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's because they don't read the Hebrew Bible and don't understand. There's so many different teachings.
Yeah.
Outside of just the Jesus thing. Even before Jesus died, the teachings, supposedly the Gospels are about when Jesus was alive before He died, and even though those teachings don't comport with the Jewish scriptures.
Right.
But Christians still try to reconcile and harmonize things, and then that's all you're doing is when you keep harmonizing everything and reconciling everything, then you're making up your own Bible.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's really what modern Christianity is. You have tens of thousands of denominations, all with different understandings and different interpretations and different teachings. That's a product of, as you just said, making your own Bible, picking and choosing what you want to believe, and saying I don't subscribe to the rest.
Right. They'll do that. Yeah, they'll do that all the time. They'll ignore. One of my favorites is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, 13 and 14. It says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every work into judgment with every sacred thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." So what does conclusion mean? The end.
Mm-hmm.
Duty. So we hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep the commandments. I mean, this is plain and simple. That there, so
Yeah.
Christianity has nothing. It's totally opposite of Christianity. That there.
Yeah, Solomon's giving you the whole meaning of life right there. In
The
the span of 2 verses.
whole meaning of everything.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point, Glenn. Really, that is brilliant. That is.
And so how are we going to ignore this? Oh, we're going to say what's old fades away, as Paul says. It's done away with.
And did you notice that
That's what you have to do.
that he didn't say this is the conclusion for the Jew, right? He said this is the conclusion of the matter for all men.
For all men.
Which just goes to show that we as non-Jews also have obligations, commandments to keep decreed by Hashem. You know, so that's very important when Christians say, oh, well, Christianity was needed to bring the Gentiles in. Well, not according to Solomon. Solomon was pretty, I mean, that's pretty clear that all humanity, in some regard, has a moral law code from God that we need to maintain.
Yeah. And then, it continues where God will bring every work into judgment, whether it be good or evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring that up to people. Why, if we sin one time, we're in trouble because we don't have a sacrifice no more, we're in trouble, then why is God bringing every work in, whether it be good or evil, both of them? Why are both coming into judgment?
Right.
If it doesn't matter what we do good, it only matters if we do something wrong, then that's the only thing that should be coming into judgment. Okay, you said that's it, you're done, goodbye. Why worry about the good?
Right. And how does that mesh with original sin? If we were born as inherently evil beings who are really incapable of doing good without, accepting Jesus' sacrifice, what kind of sense did that verse make? Right? That's going to show that you are capable of doing good and you are equally as capable of doing evil. And God is going to take both into account. So, yeah, that's good stuff, Glenn. That's very important. Very important.
Which is consistent with what all the prophets taught.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ezekiel 18, for example. Ezekiel chapter 18, when God says, do I have pleasure in the wicked dying, or I'm paraphrasing, or the wicked turning their ways and coming back?
Exactly.
It's consistent with all that. In Deuteronomy 30, where I put life and death before you, choose the good and live.
Yeah.
All consistent with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And there's even, I've heard rabbis teach this is included in the oral tradition, that book of Ecclesiastes that you just cited. I don't know if it's necessarily all of it, but definitely parts of it are believed to have been Solomon's basically conversations with non-Jewish ambassadors from different countries when they would come to Israel and meet with Solomon, or come and even bring maybe a sacrifice at the temple or something. It's understood that Ecclesiastes was basically like the words of wisdom that Solomon was imparting to the non-Jewish ambassadors. So how much more relevant, that being the case, does that make that passage of Scripture you just cited for us? That he was teaching these things, not just the Jews, but the non-Jews. I think that's beautiful and very important.
Well, I think that's overlooked with people, with how important Solomon was to non-Jews, considering all the wives he had were all from non-Jewish nations.
Mm-hmm.
He was marrying women from kings of surrounding nations.
Right. For political reasons. Yeah.
Right. For political reasons. Which means he was involved with non-Jews all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. if I remember correct, converts weren't allowed during Solomon's reign because too many people wanted to be Jewish. It was getting to the point, you know what I mean? It was getting to the point that it was like you did it because it was just like the in thing to do. Like you weren't like it was. I've heard it taught, and I hope I don't butcher this, because I did hear this a while ago. But basically, converts are really only allowed when it's a struggle to be a Jew, in exile, etc. Right? So Judaism was so much at its height. This is like the golden era of Judaism. Just like in the Messianic era, there won't be converts. So when Judaism is at like its height, that it's really fashionable to be a Jew, right? Converts aren't allowed. So the fact that Solomon was interacting with non-Jews like this and teaching of Hashem, even in a time when there's a non-conversion law, that's just going to show how really holy and righteous of a Jew he was, and how he was really shining the light of Torah to the nations, and how God really blessed his kingdom, that the nations wanted to be like him. That's very important.
Yes, it is. And that's why I tell people, it's not just reading like the laws in Leviticus and Deuteronomy in the Hebrew scriptures. It's also the stories. You get a lot from the stories.
Yeah.
Like that with Solomon. You got to read the stories and ask yourself, why is it saying this?
Mm-hmm.
Why does it use this language? You ask yourself these questions, and that's how you study and get a deeper knowledge of what's being conveyed in those passages.
Right. Yeah. So Glenn, as we start to wind this down, is there any I guess I would say advice or any words of wisdom you would have for someone who might be in the position we were in when we started leaving, when we had the questions and we found the discrepancies? What would you say to that person?
I would say, first you start out, you ask questions. If you don't get the answers, you look them up. Mm-hmm. You can go to many YouTube channels. If you're confused, take a topic and check out the Christian view, the Muslim view, and the Jewish view. Look at all three, not just one and stay in a one-way street.
Right.
Look at all three, and do that with many different topics. See which one's consistent. What's the most consistent? Then you're going to get the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Truth and consistency go together.
Sure.
And that's what I'd say. You got to invest the time. And in any relationship, a relationship with God, a relationship with your wife, if you're married, or a husband, if you're a woman, it's the same thing. You have to invest time in it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a two-way street.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like we expect God to give, right? But don't have to do anything in return. But it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
He gives us a mind and he gives us an intellect for a reason, right? We can't use ignorance as an excuse, because he gave us, especially in this modern time, he gave us all the tools to find him.
Oh yeah, with the technology, with the internet, there's so much information readily available. There's no you can find the truth so easily.
And what's funny is when I do these interviews, that's like the resounding trend is people are looking for truth, right? They're not looking for having their ears tickled, and they're not looking for the right church for them, and they're not looking for this, and they're not looking for that. What they care about is the truth, and they don't care what they're going to have to sacrifice or what they're going to have to, what heartache they're going to have to endure to find it. Truth is what matters, right?
Yeah.
Because if you aren't looking for and seeking and finding the truth, you're living a lie, regardless of how you look at it, whether it makes you feel good or not, you know.
Right. And then there's a thing is people don't invest the time in to find the truth in the relationship with God, but they want to just believe what makes them feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it is. Like for one last point, I've asked a lot of people this. If they ever went to a funeral and the person laying in the coffin, they went up to him and said, I really pitied his soul, all the bad things he did in his life. Now he's burning in hell. No, every single person, no matter how evil they were, Hitler, Bin Laden, had close relatives and family members that believe they went to heaven. Everybody does because it makes them feel good.
Yeah.
And they want to feel noble, so they're not going to go to a funeral and say you went to hell. Oh, he's in heaven, no matter what they did in their life. And that's just part of truth.
Yeah. And I mean, that's true. That's another major distinction I've noticed. For example, what Jews say when someone passes on. Blessed is the true judge, right? Because we don't have the information. I mean, it's pretty clear that that Hitler's probably not enjoying his afterlife. Let's just put it that way. But for example, if I were to pass away right now, I'm sure there's a lot of Christians that would say, "Good riddance," so he's probably burning in hell. But all my Jewish friends would say, blessed is the true judge. Only God knows exactly what we did, what we didn't do, what we should have done.
Right. Which goes back to Ecclesiastes.
Yep.
Every work will come into judgment, and God is the one that judges, not us.
Right. Yeah, and it's very much a cop-out, and it's abusive. It's systemically abusive when Christians resort to that right away, or any other religion, any other belief system that their first resort when they face opposition is, oh, well, you're going to hell. It's a scare tactic, and it's backpedaling.
Right. When the Hebrew Bible rarely mentions hell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why does it need to? When God can just turn the reins off, when God can bring a neighboring kingdom in and destroy your temple, right? If he can manifest his judgments in the life that's verifiable. He doesn't need to threaten you with an afterlife. But that's what Christianity had to do because they can't verify their claims. So you go to something that isn't verifiable.
Right.
It's scary.
Islam does the same thing in their Quran too.
Mm-hmm.
Threaten hell.
Yeah. So it just goes to show. Like, I guess you could say the threats, the curses, etc., the judgments that can be incurred when you read the Tanakh. If you aren't doing the right thing, someone's going to march in and take your land, or your crops aren't going to grow, or you're going to have locusts come eat them all up. Right? That you can see with your own eyes. That you can witness. That's observable.
The Jewish exile.
Yeah.
You can see that too.
But on the opposite side of the coin, if I don't accept Jesus into my heart, and someone just says, "Oh well, get ready. You're going to be hot for eternity," they don't know that.
Right.
They can't. And I don't know that.
Right. And it comes down, Christians say, accept Jesus in your heart. It doesn't matter what you do, and you're going to heaven. But you don't accept Jesus in your heart, and you observe the laws and keep the laws, and are obedient, you're going to hell. How does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure, and from that group, and from that bloom the teaching that the law is impossible to keep. So,
Right, because they'll bring up, well, you don't have a temple no more, so how can you keep all the law? Well, where does it say you have to keep every single law, even the ones that don't apply to you? There's laws for women that men can't do; they don't apply to us.
right.
There's laws in our country that we can't keep all of.
Sure.
If you don't, there's gun laws. If I don't own a gun, I can't keep the gun laws. Does that mean I'm disobedient to the American laws?
It's true. That's true.
That's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me. You know, there are certain laws for people who broke the law previously. When they, after their judgment, they get out of jail. There are certain things they can't do, right?
Right.
Does that mean I need to break the law and get thrown in jail so I can keep those laws when I get out? That's kind of that's basically like the Christian claim here is you can't keep it despite if it applies to you or not. That it's just impossible to keep. And as you just said, yeah, there are things that don't even apply to anyone in any given situation. So it's just such a straw man argument that really holds no weight under scrutiny.
Right. We don't, yeah. So,
but yeah, Glenn, I really appreciate it, man. I'm glad we finally got to do this. I mean, it's been a couple weeks in the works. I've been really busy with work and vacation, and so I'm glad we finally got to link up and have this conversation and let everyone hear your story and how you made it out. And I appreciate all the support you always give on the channel. I can always count on a comment from Glenn to put a smile on my face when a video comes out amidst all the hate. You know what I mean? So. Yeah. Any final thoughts? Any final comments before we wrap up?
No, just I want to thank you very much for having me on. We've been a couple of weeks going back and forth to get this set up. I'm glad we finally did. I really appreciate you giving me the time to be on the show. I sure hope this helps lead people to at least study it. I don't tell nobody, not even my family, don't believe me. Look things up.
Yeah. Read it for yourself.
I'll tell you, I'll lead you to where to look up, but look the stuff up for yourself. Don't believe me. Don't believe no person. Listen to them, but check out what they say.
Yep.
Simple.
Very true. Very true. Well, all right, everybody. This was another episode of the Exodus Project. Joined with my good friend, Glen Anleitner. I'm your host, Steve Eisenhower. We'll catch you on the other side, guys. See ya.
Bye.